from, it seems that it's even later in the evening for you than it is for me. So congratulations to anybody in Poland, Ukraine, Malta, where it is getting somewhat late. I take my hat off to you for your dedication to your own professional development. Okay, so obviously today's session is all about using technology within the young learner classroom, specifically using all those kind of technological games and activities that are often available through classroom presentation tools or through other programs. But before we go into any of that, I just want to do a very quick vote, a very quick poll, okay? Just for my own information, really, more than anything. And it's this, just very simply, do you agree or disagree with this statement? I regularly use technology in my young learner classroom. So if you can vote in the poll rather than in the chat box, that would be great. I'm going to stop the voting there, okay, and end the poll. So we can see that, yeah, the vast majority, as expected, do already use technology in your classroom, which is great. It's good to see. So hopefully we'll be able to provide you with more ideas for your classrooms. And for those who aren't already using technology in the young learner classroom, hopefully it'll be a sort of brave new world for you, so to speak. Okay, let's hide that poll. So in terms of what we're going to cover in this session, we're going to start off with a little bit of theory and understanding young learners and how they like to learn. We're then going to look at young learners specifically in relation to technology. And then finally, we're going to look at using this kind of technology in the classroom, specifically the games. I apologize for any sound issues. I think we worked out what that was. So let's make a proper start. So I just want to start with another kind of question, really, and that is this. What makes a successful teacher or a successful lesson? So maybe try to think of a recent lesson that you've taught. What made it so successful, and what makes you as a teacher successful as well? So just in the chat box, type down any ideas, any thoughts you might have. And certainly there is no right answer, there is no wrong answer to this question. Good, Jonathan. Rapport is really, really important. Engaging, absolutely, Anne. Planning in advance, Jeffrey. Yeah, so I think planning is really important and all too often gets maybe not the attention it should do. Motivation, students who are relaxed and motivated, pedagogy, dynamism, excitement, updated lessons, student-centered learning, all great answers. The answer I kind of came back to, and I keep coming back to actually, is that of, as a teacher, knowing our students. Because we can only really have a successful lesson and be a successful teacher if we know our students, if we know how they learn, if we know what they like, if we know what engages them. So it kind of gets summed up here by this quote by Andelin and Midgley. So the teachers who are most successful in engaging their students develop activities with students' basic psychological and intellectual needs in mind. So what that then questions then, what that begs the question of, well, what are these psychological and intellectual needs that the students have? Specifically the young learners. And to answer that question, we need to turn to these four gentlemen who you may not recognize, but for sure you know exactly who they all are by their names. So, can anyone tell me who this gentleman might be? Very good, Anna Lucia. It is Jean Piaget. Excellent, good start there. Secondly, we have this gentleman. Who is this gentleman? Very good. And Hannah and Lucia doing very well. And Karen, excellent. You're all correct. It is John Dewey. Thirdly, we have, very good. Karen's right in there. It is Vygotsky, Lev Vygotsky. And finally, number 4 is, very good, Karen. It is, or as Anna Lucia, Jerome B. Very familiar. So yeah, absolutely. So four gentlemen who have, done huge research, and their theories have impacted tremendously on the teaching of young learners, not just within language teaching, but in general. And I'm sure you don't need me to tell you in any great detail what these guys thought, what they did, but we'll very briefly go through it. So first of all, Piaget, as I'm sure you all know, he told us that children are active learners and thinkers. His action-based theory suggests that children make sense of experiencing by performing in order to solve problems. And it's through the actions, through the movement, that learning actually occurs. In other words, children learn by interacting with their environment. Therefore, giving learners the opportunities to learn by doing and interacting is absolutely key. And you've got to think about what their environment actually exists like outside of the classroom. And it's very much dominated by technology. Dewey very basically tells us that learning should be relevant and with a meaningful context. So again, this is really, really relevant now, that if we want our learners to be successful, yes, we should be doing something which is meaningful in terms of the topic and the content, but also the delivery of that content. Thirdly, Lev Vygotsky tells us that children learn through social interaction. Of course, his main theory is the zone of proximal development, whereby he recognized that children do not only have an actual developmental level, but also a potential level of development. And that is the gap between what they can do on their own and what they can do with the assistance of the teacher. Essentially what he's saying is when left to their own devices, the children in his experiments achieve far less when given guidance and assistance by an adult. So they need that structure, they need that help, which can be provided obviously by the teacher, but also by technology in the classroom. Finally, Jerome Bruner tells us that children learn through effective scaffolding by adults. So this kind of came apart as part of the social constructivist theory in the 1970s, i.e. scaffolding and breaking down of the steps of a lesson. Okay. So I guess the question really here is then that that's all great. We know that theory, but how does it all link to technology? Because of course these theories were all developed pre-technology, pre-iPads, pre-internet, pre-classroom presentation tools, pre-interactive whiteboards. So we somehow have to link those learning theories, those very strong learning theories, to learning in the 21st century. Because, as we know, our children are digital natives. Now, I'm not suggesting by any means that children should be on the iPad from the age of 6 months, as depicted in this picture, but certainly this is how they are growing up. It is all around them. You know, like I said, they're digital natives, which is a term first defined by Mark Prensky, in that they are native speakers of the digital language of computers, videos, video games, social media, and the internet. They are the technological generation. So it makes perfect sense for us to incorporate technology into the classroom whenever we can, because it's something which they're comfortable with. And of course, within the classroom, we want them to feel comfortable. We want them to feel relaxed, because if they are those things, then there's a greater chance of learning happening. Okay. And there are many advantages of having technology in the classroom. Now, I'm not saying we have to go as far as we can see in this picture, These were actually space projection helmets that were developed actually by National Geographic for a sort of a holistic experience of being an astronaut. So they put them on, and inside the visor they have the moon and what they can see from there, which is really cool. But that's going one step further than we can do in the classroom with the technology available to us. So what can I do? Well, I think it's an effective way to connect with students of all learning styles. Technology has that ability to engage everybody, whether they're kinesthetic, video or audio, visual, interpersonal, intrapersonal, tolerant of ambiguity, not tolerant of ambiguity. All those different learning styles, technology in some way will appeal to them. It enhances the interaction and collaboration within the classroom because, as we'll see later, it can involve everybody. I challenge you to think of a student who doesn't get excited or doesn't get involved when you tell them that you're going to do something with the iPad, with a classroom presentation tool, or even their own mobile devices, if you have a BYOD classroom policy. As part of that, it of course helps students stay engaged. They love technology. They are focused on it. It facilitates an active learning environment. And by that, I mean, similar to, involving all of the students. They want to be involved. I think it facilitates a sort of heads up classroom rather than a heads down classroom in terms of looking at a book. And also I think it can encourage students to be more responsible in terms of how they digest technology, how they use technology within not just the classroom, but also outside the classroom too. And as a whole, we would suggest that it enhances the learning experience. There's been a lot of research that suggests that actually students improve better when they have a degree of technology within the classroom. And I think that kind of gets summed up really by the next quote, in that we've got to be careful with how we use it. Yes, technology is great, but there has to be that degree of caution as well. And I'm going to quote a guy called Hal Crowther. And he wrote a book about technology and its impact on learners, on social lives in the 21st century. And he says that though the educational potential of the internet is limitless, it is becoming apparent that wired students use technology less to learn than to distract themselves from learning. Now, when I first kind of came across this quote, it got me thinking, because I wasn't sure that I completely agreed with it, or especially disagreed with it, because it, of course, depends on different scenarios, different institutes, different teaching contexts. There's lots of variables that might be involved within this. So I was kind of sort of on the fence really of where I sat with this. So I thought it'd be interesting to see what your opinions were. So we're going to do another poll, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to tell me how far you agree with this statement. With 1 being that you completely disagree, and 10 being you completely agree. So using the poll rather than the chat box, just click where you feel you are with that statement. Okay, votes coming in, and they keep. Well, you can see where the votes coming. Actually, we have the broadcast results on, so we can see most of you are around the 5% or 5. Quite a few 6s and 7s and 8s. Okay, I'm going to end the poll there. But to be fair, it's probably similar to me. I was kind of in that range, probably 6, 7, 8, because I think there are just too many variables for me to kind of make a kind of a clear decision on that. But what's really interesting is I actually read an article recently from the Sydney Morning Herald in Australia, And there's an article where a school has taken the unusual steps of banning iPads within the classroom. As I read the sort of article, I discovered that they'd only introduced them 2 years previously. So obviously, it was a big decision in the first instance and at great expense to bring technology into the classroom. But very quickly, they realized that actually technology wasn't the answer. And I think that's a really good thing to bear in mind. Yes, there's lots of great things about technology, but we have to be careful with how we use it. But luckily, there's something that can help us with that. And it's something called the Samir model. So the Samir model is a model that was designed or devised by Dr. Ruben Fuentedura and in 2009. And what it does, it outlines 4 different categories for technology integration in the classroom. Yeah, absolutely, Marcel. You made a really good point there. Progress for the sake of progress is useless. Of course, just because we have it doesn't mean we have to use it. And that's exactly where this model comes in, I think. It enables teachers to make an appropriate decision, appropriate choice, whether to use technology or not to use technology. So, on the first step, we have this idea of substitution. In other words, technology acts in place, is used in place of an existing non-tech classroom tool, but there is no functional improvement. Now, if it was substitution, it's well, why? Why bother? Why if it's exactly the same, let's say on the whiteboard as on an interactive whiteboard, why use it? And that's a fair comment. So I think if it's a straight substitution, we have to think about it. Well, do I really need to use it? Am I doing it just because I can? The second step is this idea of augmentation, where technology is a substitute for an existing tool, like substitution, but there are some functional improvements. We can do more with it. So it's better than what we had, but maybe we don't have to use it all the time, let's say. The third step is this idea of modification, which says that technology allows for a significant task redesign. In other words, there is a lot more flexibility. There is more that we can do with it that's going to significantly change or improve the learning experience for students. And then that goes one stage further with the R, which is a redefinition, whereby technology allows for the creation of new tasks, which were previously impossible with the existing technology or the existing material content within the classroom. Now, clearly there's a sort of very, very clear 2 stages here. You've got the first 2, which can come under this idea of enhancement. So it enhances the classroom when we substitute or augment, but it doesn't necessarily change it. In comparison, modification and redefinition can be defined as transforming the classroom, which in other words makes it far more appropriate to use them within the classroom. So I think using that table, using that kind of model, I think teachers can have a really good idea of when and what they should be doing with technology in the classroom. We shouldn't just be using it for the sake of it being there. And as Pete Sharma suggests, he says that technology should enrich the learning experience, but not take over. And I think that's something really important to bear in mind. Now, let's kind of put this into a real world teaching context. And I think that we'd all agree that the most kind of common use of technology within the classroom is going to be using a classroom presentation tool, which, depending on the functionality of said classroom presentation tool, would probably go somewhere between the augmentation and the modification level on the Samir model. Because I think they offer significant functional improvements. They offer additional content, additional materials. But more than that, I think they help teachers to engage every student within the classroom. Like I said, students are looking up at the board as a group rather than looking down at an individual book. So the class are together, not as individuals. And with all the integrated audio, video, interactive activities and games, they can make teachers' lives so much easier. But that's my view, that's my opinion. I want to see what your view is very quickly. So another quick poll. I believe that classroom presentation tools improve the classroom learning experience for students. Do you agree or do you disagree? Wow, the votes are coming in very quickly. It's excellent to see. Perfect. Listen, I think we have a unanimous result there. 100% agree. But as Jeffrey Harper rightly points out, of course, it depends on how the teachers use it. And Ahmed suggests, how can we remove the technophobia from ELT? Also, substitute being a techno-savvy. I mean, it's a process, isn't it? I've done training of lots of different types of teachers. Some are very, very reluctant to use technology, and some can't wait to use it. And rightly or wrongly, there is generally a generational gap between the technophobe and the technophile or the techno-savvy teacher. But it's just a case of really using technology which is simple and easy to use. I think that's the key thing. If it's very user-friendly and teachers are given the appropriate training, they can build that confidence. And certainly that's something which can be done over time. So hopefully that kind of part answers your question, Ahmed. Okay, I was going to hide that poll. Okay, so what advantages are there really of CPTs? Well, there are lots of advantages because you can do different things with them. And that's the thing, you can do things with a classroom presentation tool that you simply cannot do with a book. For example, some advantages for you. I think I just jumped off the screen. No. Okay, so what are some advantages of using software? First of all, I think it allows teachers to deliver lessons in 3 different modes: visual, auditory, and tactile, or kinesthetic. It means that everybody is involved in some form or another, regardless of what type of learner you are. Secondly, students say that they feel that they learn better using an interactive whiteboard and could understand the teacher better, which that's a win-win for everybody, right? No one's complaining, not the teacher, not the students. Thirdly, students felt that the interactive whiteboard offers variety when compared to the traditional whiteboard. And certainly that's absolutely the case. There's so many more things that you can do. Not just variety, but flexibility as well. Students also enjoy the multimedia capabilities of the smartboard, i.e. it's connected to the internet. And the internet is just there for anything and everything. And it is an amazing thing to be able to tap into at the touch of a button. And finally, I think they can also, as we'll see later, they can support collaborative learning strategies amongst students. Okay, so just to give you an idea, one of my favorite activities to do with a classroom presentation tool is to use what most of them have. They most have this kind of window shade tool whereby you can hide part of the screen. And I use this specifically with photographs in books, just to get students' attention, get them engaged. Now, this is an activity you could not do in a student's book because they open the book up and it's there, they can see it. But with the classroom presentation tool, we can find, or we can hide different parts of the screen. So here we have a group of Boy Scouts, and well, what do we think they might be looking at? In the chat box, what do you think they might be looking at? Try to look at the expressions on their face. How are they feeling? What could they be feeling that about? What suggestions? Their trainer, a wild animal, Juanita says. What kind of animal do we think it could be? They're very close to it, if that's the case. His teacher, some girl. Christine, I like that answer. Some girl guides they've just met by chance. A fire, a bear, a bull, yeah, it's that look of confusion, right? A cassette tape, a white tiger, a strange dance. Okay, all great answers. Let's see who is correct. So anybody said a wild animal? I think someone actually said a bear. So congratulations to you. But quite frankly, if I was stood this close to a bear, there is no way I would have that expression on my face. I would be wanting to run a mile. I would be looking slightly more concerned than that. I mean, look at the size of those teeth. So look, that's just one very simple way that you can use a classroom presentation tool's basic tool to enhance the learning experience, like I say, specifically with photographs. But what I want to do now is look at maybe more how we can use the activities, games, which are available on classroom presentation tools, but also online. Jennifer's just pointed out that the boy at the back is doing something not very pleasant and picking his nose. That's a really good spot, Jennifer. Well done. But let's move on from that tasteful subject to look at how we can incorporate the games. Now, I think games we all know students love games, and when we marry games with technology, surely we have a winning partnership. They engage, they motivate the learners. And as we've already established, motivation and engagement are key to learning. So this combination really is the perfect combination for the learners. Carolina, you are jumping the gun a little bit here with Kahoot. We'll be coming on to Kahoot shortly. So look, imagine we are teaching this lesson, which is all about to be. Now, we all know how students feel about grammar. You've done the presentation of the grammar. You've given some examples. You've done some controlled practice in the book. You might even have done some personalization sentences or personalization speaking, but there comes a stage in the lesson, specifically grammar lessons, where you begin to lose some students. They begin to chat to the person next to you. They begin to look out the window. So it makes sense to keep that focus by doing a simple interactive game, which can involve the whole class. And when you have it at the click of a button, it makes it so simple, so easy to use. So even for those technophobe teachers, when it's at the click of a button, it's simple and easy for them. So for example, with this particular game here, and actually do it as a video. So the way I would use this game is very simple. You get students to, you'll see in a minute that the spinner goes spinning around. You get students to shout stop, you stop it, and then the animal moves along to the thing. You then get the question whereby you have various options. And what I would do as a class, I would get them to vote. So I'd either get them to put their hands up or to move to different parts of the class to represent the different answers. And there would have to be a majority for me to choose the correct answer, at which point we put the answer in, and if it's correct, great, the animal stays where it is. And then we repeat the process. We spin the wheel a second time. And the animal moves along, and we get another question. And again, students vote as a class. So I think sometimes teachers think these games may be only good for individual students, but actually it works really well as a whole class activity as well. Okay, I apologize for those who can't see the video. I thought I had edited them appropriately for anybody connecting via mobile devices. But for those who couldn't see, essentially what we have here is the animal, we spin the wheel, the animal moves along, we get a question, and we do it as a class vote. So it's all of the class's responsibility to make sure that the animal gets to the finish line at the top. Okay, Ahmed, that's a question that we're going to answer later on. Okay, this particular game is part of the classroom presentation for our World Second Edition. But Emily also mentioned that more towards the end. Okay. Moving on to vocabulary. Again, in a traditional classroom, we might, if we're lucky, have some printouts for different flashcards. But they're bulky and potentially have limited use. Of course, there are various games that can be done with flashcards. And I'm sure we all have our own repertoire of said activities. But technology makes it so much more fun, so much more engaging. And certainly my favorite, is it my favorite? Was maybe my second favorite program for vocabulary, specifically flashcards, is Quizlet, which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. Now, I was asked earlier today, do you have to pay for Quizlet? Yes and no. So the basic version is free, but if you want the kind of premium version, there is a payment that you need to make for it. But to be honest with you, it's worth it. It really is. And the great thing about Quizlet, it's easy to use. So even for those technophobe teachers, there's nothing to be scared of. You can make the flashcards however you like. Maybe word and definition, maybe word and picture, maybe picture and definition, maybe the audio, the pronunciation and the definition. It has that flexibility that you can use it in whatever way you like. And actually, handily, it also comes with lots of tutorials on YouTube as well. But the great thing is there's different activities as well, kind of built into Quizlet. Poppy just made the thing about Quizlet Live. Yeah, I was going to mention Quizlet Live in a moment. That's really cool as well. But here, okay, it's a simple flashcard, which we can flip over with definition and the actual word. Here, it's just a simple matching activity. But you do this as a class. Again, you do it as a class voting system. You know, which one is it? Hands up, stand up, however you want to get the students to interact. This was probably my favorite one. You have the different things, the definitions, the words floating around the screen. Getting students to come up to the board and doing it, lots of fun. So it's very kinesthetic in that respect. And the final one here is the gravity game, where you've got the words dropping down and you have to type into the box the correct word. And again, you get students shouting out the spellings, shout the word out, shout the spellings out. Everybody is involved. Or you can split it up as teams, however you want to interact with it. Okay, so it engages, it motivates. Technology used in the right way to enhance the learning experience. Yeah, Caroline, the gravity game is kind of cool. Okay, I should just say, actually, this is another blog you can read about 10 ways of using Quizlet in the classroom. I don't have time to do a whole session on Quizlet, but have a look at this blog if you want more ideas. Okay, tech games also involve all students and facilitate collaboration. And we kind of alluded to this just now. It's important because you want all students to be involved. And all too often, students can get left out. And games of any description do that really well. They facilitate collaboration, they facilitate interaction. Okay, I think I'm just going to ask for the website again. That's the website there. It will be on the slides, okay? It will be provided later on when you get the slides. So maybe take a snapshot of the screen if you want the website. Otherwise, just wait until we send out the PDF. Okay, okay, so in terms of collaborative games, so this is a really nice one whereby students are in teams. It's essentially Jeopardy, where they are trying to win as many points as possible. Similarly, something like tic-tac-toe, noughts and crosses, students get engaged. They work together to win the team, okay? Okay. And of course, we've mentioned it already, or you've mentioned it already, Kahoot. Kahoot is amazing for anybody who hasn't used it. It's free on the basic version. The premium you have to pay for, but again, it's probably worth it if you're using it a lot, okay? Essentially, it's a student response gamifying tool that lets teachers create multiple choice quizzes and polls, and it's a great way to incorporate fun and games into the classroom. And it's quick, it's real time. Yes, you need students to have their own mobile devices, or maybe you're lucky enough to have class sets of tablets or iPads or whatever. And it's really simple, you know. It might be you put them in teams, it might be that you have them individually. But for me personally, I would always put them in teams, in groups. That way there's that collaboration, there's that certainty of maybe what an answer is. They have that discussion, or maybe it's on, maybe it's in, maybe it's at. Which one is it? Or Angelina, absolutely, in a computer lab it works as well. And you know, I kind of mentioned it here with vocabulary, but it could of course be used with grammar as well. We have sentences and you could put the correct tense, prepositions, articles, whatever it might be. And again, just another blog to share with you from weareteachers.com. 12 ways to use Kahoot in your classroom. And so again, just more ideas on how you can use Kahoot, because this session isn't about Kahoot and Quizlet, it's about technology in general. But lots of ideas at that website. Okay, another website I want to share with you, which has got really cool vocabulary games for team games, is the collaboration between the BBC and British Council, which is learnenglishkids.britishcouncil.org/games. Now, on this website is my favorite activity to do with students, which is word shake. You might know it as another term as Boggle. It used to be a game called Boggle in the UK. And it's really simple. You put your students into groups and they have to make words out of the letters that they get given. So it gets them thinking cognitively, it involves all of them. I've done this so many times, so regularly that students don't get bored of it. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how good you are at this time of the evening or the afternoon with words, okay? So what I would like you to do, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think of as many words or to make as many words as you can using these letters, okay? Now, you can only use each letter once, unless there are 2 of them or 3 of them, like the I's. And what I want you to do is not type a word, press enter, type a word, press enter. I want you just to make a list of all the words you can make, and at the end of the 60 seconds, then press enter, okay? So don't do it individually, do a whole list of words, then press enter at the end of the 60 seconds. Now, there is a 10-letter word in there. And I want to see if anybody can find that 10-letter word, all right? So, your 60 seconds starts, get my stopwatch going, now. Okay, so don't type the words in the chat box individually. Wait for the 60 seconds to be up, okay? and then have them all in for one big block. I should say, as you're doing this, you get different points for different lengths of words. You get 1 point for 3-letter words, 4 points for 4-letter words, 5 points, 3 points for 5-letter words, and so on. Remember, there's a 10-letter word in there, and that's 30 seconds. Well, similar is a good word, Ava. Okay, 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, stop, press enter. Wow, some big lists there. You guys are good at, well, someone said it was 1 o'clock in the morning, so wow, hats up to you. Nobody got the 10-letter word, which was harmonizes. Harmonizes. We could have had harmonize for 9 as well. So there we go. But look, you guys were engaged, you were involved, and the beauty of this game is you then just click on the new game and it generates a new load of letters. Yes, it doesn't practice specific vocabulary, of course not, but what it does do, it gets students recycling what they already know. And because you have that competition of the team games, they're engaged, they're collaborating, they're having fun, they're learning. Okay, let's move on because we're going to run out of time. So just on that point of collaboration, really, I love this African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's kind of the key thing about any kind of collaboration. Medley, I'm glad that you think it's a funny game. Okay, what else do tech games do? They help keep and develop students' attention spans. Now, we all know in the 21st century, attention spans are dropping. And what exactly do we mean by attention span? Well, we mean it's the amount of concentrated time a person can spend on a task without becoming distracted. And the element of distractibility occurs when the individual is uncontrollably drawn to some other activity or sensation. I guess the question really is how long is our attention? Of course, it will differ depending on environments, individuals, age, etc. But research in Canada suggests that it is definitely decreasing because of the digital age. In fact, what they suggest is that in 2000, the average attention span was 12 seconds. By 2013, it was 8 seconds. This was when the research was done. Now, they haven't updated the research for 2019, but what's interesting here is that a goldfish, as we all well know, has a memory of 9 seconds, which kind of leads to this. Having the attention span of a goldfish used to be a bad thing. Now we could consider it as a good thing. Now, we may choose to believe this research, we may not. But I think the undeniable fact is that attention spans are dropping. And what games can do is it can help develop the attention as well as just keeping the attention. I think that's important. Because we have this thing of the acquired attention deficit disorder, which is a term that was coined by a gentleman called John Rayleigh of Harvard Medical School in the United States. And he used it to describe the changes to the brain that are being induced by Generation Z's use of technology. There is a noticeable impact on the ability for learners to concentrate and focus on longer, more complicated, more involved problem solving. So we need to do activities which actually develop this attention span. And specifically, what we're talking about here is this idea of our working memory. Okay? So when we have good working memory, when we have good attention, it's important because what is attended is learned, and so attention controls the acquisition of language. So working memory is really important within this. And essentially what it is a short-term memory and attention focus system. In other words, your mental workspace. It makes information available for thinking, problem solving, planning, decision making, and comprehending. So what kind of games can help us with this? Well, one which you are all very familiar with is a very simple memory or Pelmanism game, where students have to remember where certain things are. You have to remember which words or which images under which card to match them up. And of course, we might do this very often in the classroom with flashcards or whatever, but we can do it digitally as well. I think for me, in this case, it's more a case of substitution. Yeah, exactly, Caroline. It is like a memory game, absolutely. It's just like that. So yes, it serves an educational purpose in helping them to remember meanings of words, matching pairs, synonyms, opposites, whatever you might be doing. But what it also does, it develops that working memory. It makes them focus. And I play this game with my 6-year-old daughter, and she is phenomenally good at it. Better than me, actually, I'm embarrassed to say. She has this knack of just remembering where the matching pairs are. And it's a game that we play with children all the time because we want them to develop that memory, that working memory specifically. Another really fun activity I kind of recently discovered is this idea of the end-back task. Now, the end-back task was developed by a gentleman called Wayne Kirchner back in 1958. And what it is, you present to your students a sequence of items. It might be letters, it might be words, it might be images, one at a time. So, here's just an example, really. So this one is the one end back, okay? Which basically means when you have a repetition of, in this case, a letter, you would clap your hands. So we go B, B is repeated directly afterwards. The next one would be the letter D, and then we have 2 R's as well. But that, let's face it, it's pretty easy, you know, because it's only remembering the one before, right? What isn't so easy is when we do it as the 2 end back task, whereby we have to remember not the one directly before, but 2 before. So in this case, it would be the L, B, A, Q, F, P, E, P, and the second P, because it remembers back to this one, and it goes back to this one. So I've just demonstrated it here with letters, but I would do this with vocabulary. I've done it with images, especially images, because they're theoretically more easy, or they're easier to remember. So I thought it'd be fun just to try this with you, okay? So we're going to do a 2 end back task. And this is more of an experiment, really. I've done this live with a group of students and a group of teachers before, but never over the internet in a webinar. So what I want you to do, when you have an image which is repeated with 2 end back, I want you to use your status hand to raise your hand, okay? So, for example, let's give this a go. So, cat. Elephant. Frog. Dolphin. Frog. Perfect. Very good. Excellent, guys. All of the hands straight up. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to carry it on. Hopefully you can remember. I'm going to clear your statuses. There's a sec. Put all your hands down. Okay, remember this is before the frog was the dolphin, okay? Dolphin, frog, dolphin. There we go, hands up again. Good job. Gonna carry on. Yeah, I'm just gonna clear your statuses. Remember, before the dolphin was the frog. So frog, dolphin, elephant, cat, elephant. Good. There you go again. All the hands going up. Your memories are very good for this time of night. Okay, carrying on. Before the elephant was the cat, remember. Cat, elephant, cat. Perfect. All the hands going up again. I'm going to give you a little clap there. Oh, dolphins, cat. Okay, perfect. Very impressive, guys. Very impressive. So just to help you out there, this is what it will look like in order. So we can see there that sort of the key two end backs were the frog, the dolphin, the elephant, cat, and the cat. Now, this is a really fun activity because it's challenging the students. They want to know if they can remember it. And you can use it to revise any vocabulary that you want to. And it's really easy to put together on a PowerPoint, on a Word document, however you want to present it on the interactive whiteboard. Anyway, we're running out of time, so I need to skip through the next little bit, okay? Okay, games, they aid classroom management. So depending on how your students are feeling, if they're really, really, really excited and overexcited, you can do certain games to calm them down. For example, you'd use a settler. For example, this kind of activity, a crossword. If you want your class to be re-energized, if you want to stir them, you could use any of the games that we've already seen. So something like word check is great for this. You know, maybe it's the middle of the lesson, you can see your students beginning to flag. You've already got this preloaded on your whiteboard because you know it might happen. You just pull it up in the middle of the lesson, change the pace, change the focus. 2 minutes, go. So games can be really good for settling and stirring your students. So they aid classroom management. They can also, of course, reinforce learning through repetition. And as we all know, repetition is the mother of all learning. And of course, there's plenty of studies that bear that out. But repetition can be boring. If you're doing the same activity again and again and again and again, of course your students are going to get bored. Of course they're going to turn out. But weirdly, as soon as you put that repetition within a technology context, suddenly it doesn't matter. They just do it again and again and again and again because they want to get it right. They want to do better than last time. It's gamifying the repetition. So it might be like in this case, it might be kind of a little hangman type activity where they have to get the correct spelling of a word. So they listen to the word, they have to get the correct spelling of it. In this particular game, you can't see it in action, but we have the thing here rotating, spinning round. They get asked a question. And here, it's just a case of matching the words with the correct collocation or in this case, the correct pronoun. But it makes what might be repetition sort of in the book, in the workbook, or just drilling, something a little bit more engaging and tangible for students. Okay, last few minutes. I think also they provide a really good opportunity for formative assessment. Because of the fact that games are an excellent way to promote young learners to actively focus their attention and immerse themselves in English language learning, it's a good opportunity to take advantage of this and use them to assess learners. And it's good to assess learners this way because when they're doing games, specifically technology-based games, they reduce anxiety. It's less intimidating for the students. It encourages more spontaneity from the students. And of course, as we've seen already, it fosters a participatory attitude within the class. So they may not realize that you're assessing them because they're so involved in the activity, so involved in the game. But you're taking notes. Maybe you've got some kind of form that you're filling out. So I think it does provide that great opportunity for formative assessment. You can see where students are. whether it's by show of hands when you're doing a quiz type activity, if they're getting the right answers, the wrong answers. Katana, I wish you had an IW. I wish you had an IWB as well. Okay, last bit. I think also technology, of course, encourages learning outside the classroom. I think if we can showcase technology and games within the classroom, it can also motivate learners to continue playing them by themselves outside the classroom too. So having them accessible on a tablet, on a mobile platform, I think is really, really important. And of course, many young learning programs now have this. They have the opportunity for learners to engage with these games outside of the classroom. It's gamifying learning. And certainly my daughter, she is semi-bilingual, speaking Spanish as well. But she really enjoys doing her Spanish games on mobile activities like this. Because it's fun. She doesn't really see it as learning, she just sees it as a game. So having that ability to access these types of activities, I think is really, really important. And it gives them that kind of autonomy over their learning. Okay, so just to sum up very quickly, we can use technology, specifically games, to motivate and engage learners, involve all learners, and get them collaborating. It can help develop and keep their attention span. They can aid classroom management. They reinforce learning through repetition. They provide opportunities for formative assessment, and they encourage learning outside the classroom. So I just want to finish with a quote from Albert Einstein. And he said this: "I never teach my pupils, I only provide the conditions in which they can learn." And for my part, I would suggest that combining two things young learners love doing, games and technology, allows exactly for this. So thank you so much for your time. I know it's very late for some of you. It's coming up to midnight or even later in the evening for you. So your attention, your participation has been very much appreciated. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box and I will do my best to answer them. Well, no, thank you guys, because honestly, these things would not work without your participation. And it's great to see so many teachers from all around the world taking their professional development so seriously. And yeah, it's very much appreciated. So thank you for attending and sharing your evenings, your nights, your late afternoons with us. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Alex. I hope I'm not creating a staticky sound here. I sort of hear it in my ears. But thanks to everyone for joining us today, too. As Alex mentioned, we're so glad you could spend an hour with us for enriching your own professional development and teaching practice. And we really hope you found it useful. Just a few things to note as we wrap up here. As Alex explained, many of the examples he used were actually from the CPT of Our World Second Edition, which is the new edition of the best-selling series for young learners of English from National Geographic Learning, and from Look, the new 7-level series for young learners of English. You can find out a little bit more about both those series on the Young Learner landing page I just put in the chat box here. And several of the other examples Alex used are available on the web, and we'll be sharing the PowerPoint through an email with everyone after too, and it will also be on our website for you to refer to. And we'll also have the recording as well there, and we'll be emailing everyone a certificate for attending the webinar here today. So thank you. And we hope you can join us again soon for another webinar. We do have 2 next week. You can sign up on the same site that you registered for this one. And then we also have the InFocus blog for teachers of English. Alex is a frequent contributor to the blog, so be sure to check that out if you have some time. Great. Thanks everyone for joining us. Be sure to connect with us on our social media channels, and I hope you have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening. I'm going to send everyone to a quick feedback survey now, so you can let us know what you thought about this webinar, and so we can help keep bringing you helpful webinars in the future. Great. All right. Thanks again, Alex. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Bye now. Ciao.